The Viking Empire of Vinland. What if the Norse stayed? Most of what you've been told about the history of the world is a comfortable lie. You've been taught that the Norse presence in North America was a flickering candle, snuffed out by a brutal climate and isolation. They tell you the Vikings were destined to fail, a mere footnote before the real discovery of the Americas. History is lying to you. In 1000 AD, at a site we now call Lance aux Meadows, a single high-stakes decision was made. It wasn't a choice made in a palace or a war room, but in a smoke-filled longhouse on the edge of the known world. It was a moment of pure desperation that didn't just save a tiny settlement. It redirected the entire trajectory of the human race. But here's the part they never taught you in school. What if the New World wasn't actually new? What if, by the time Columbus set sail, the Atlantic was already guarded by an empire that had been forged in iron and blood 5 centuries earlier? By the end of this journey, you're going to see how the survival of a few dozen settlers changed the global economy forever. You'll witness the Steel Exchange, a merger of two worlds that created a superior civilization. And you'll discover why 1492 wasn't a discovery at all. It was the start of the greatest intercontinental war the world has ever seen. Chapter 1. The Iron Turn, the 1000 AD survival. Think about the last time you were truly cold. Maybe your power went out for an hour, or you forgot your coat on a winter morning. Now, imagine that cold lasting for 6 months. Imagine the silence of the horizon when the last ship back to Greenland disappears, and you realize no one is coming to save you. This was the frontier. Survival here wasn't a dry historical fact. It was a terrifying, daily question. In the winter of 1000 AD, Leif Erikson's colony was at a breaking point. The food stores were empty. The cattle were dying. The Skrælings, the local indigenous populations, were a constant, unknown shadow in the woods. Most historians say the Norse gave up because they ran out of resources. But they're wrong. The Iron Turn happened when Eriksson's council realized they couldn't survive as Vikings. They couldn't be raiders or temporary harvesters of timber. They had to become something new. Instead of hoarding their precious iron for weapons to use against the locals, they made a radical choice. They used the iron to buy their way in. They chose permanent residence over abandonment. They stopped looking back across the ocean at a Greenland that was already dying, and they looked into the deep, rich forests of the West. If you've ever felt the fear of starting over in a place where you don't belong, you can understand the desperation of that first winter. They weren't conquerors. They were refugees with better tools. But to stay, they needed a bridge. They needed to trade the one thing they had, steel, for the one thing they lacked, the knowledge of how to live on this land. They were no longer visitors. They were the first Vinlanders. But how does a small band of Norsemen convince an entire continent to let them stay? The answer is a technological revolution that would eventually bring the old world to its knees. Chapter 2. The Steel Exchange, the Technological Revolution. Imagine a world where Norse iron didn't just meet American soil, it married it. This wasn't a conquest, it was a steel exchange. It was a synergy that created a third, superior path for human development. When Norse livestock met American soil, it didn't just change the menu. It sparked an agricultural revolution that happened 5 centuries ahead of schedule. By automating their food supply through hybrid farming, the Vinlanders did something incredible. They freed their people from the constant threat of starvation. Think about that. While Europe was busy with the Crusades and the Black Death, the Vinlanders were building cities. They were engineers and philosophers. They used Norse shipbuilding logic to bridge the Great Lakes. They used indigenous knowledge of the stars to map the entire coast from Labrador to the Gulf of Mexico. But here's the catch. A superpower can only stay hidden for so long. Eventually, the old world would come looking for what they thought was theirs. And if you've stayed with me through the forge of the 11th century, you're now ready for the moment that changed the Atlantic forever. Chapter 3. The Shieldwall of the Atlantic, Defending the New World. In our history, 1492 was a discovery. In this history, it was a clash of empires. The brain hates an unfinished story, and for 5 centuries, Europe had forgotten the legends of the land of wine in the West. When Christopher Columbus finally emerged from the fog of the Atlantic, he expected to find primitive gold. Columbus didn't find a beach. He found a shield wall. The Vinlander shield wall defense strategy was the pinnacle of 500 years of naval evolution. Imagine being a Spanish captain, realizing your bronze cannons are completely outranged by Vinlander ballistae that fire steel-tipped bolts with the force of a falling tree. Imagine seeing your wooden hulls shattered by Vinlander prows reinforced with the very iron your ancestors failed to master. The stakes here weren't just about trade routes. This was the survival of a unique, self-governing civilization versus the total colonization of a continent. If the Vinlanders fell, the synthesis of two worlds would be erased by the greed of the Spanish crown. The Vinlanders didn't just defend their land. They closed the loop on European expansion before it ever began. They proved that the New World was actually the Fortress World. Chapter 4. The Cultural Fusion, Birth of the Vinlander Identity. By the 16th century, the Vinlander identity wasn't a Norse colony anymore. It was something entirely new, a hybrid culture that had taken the best of both worlds. If you were a citizen of 16th century Vinland, your daily life would feel like a masterclass in balance. You'd live in a home built with the structural strength of a longhouse, but optimized for the local humidity. Your community wouldn't be ruled by a distant king, but by a great thing. The great thing. This was the ultimate synthesis. It took the Old Norse law, the thing, and merged it with indigenous communal governance. It was a decentralized, high-functioning democracy where your voice actually mattered, centuries before the American Revolution. Syncretic spirituality. Imagine a faith where Odin and the Great Spirit are seen as two sides of the same coin. They didn't build cathedrals. They built sacred groves, where the spirits of the iron and the spirits of the forest were honored in equal measure. Linguistic fusion. They spoke Vinlandic, a tongue that used the hard, rhythmic grammar of Old Norse, but was filled with a rich indigenous vocabulary for the plants, animals, and rivers of the continent. You wouldn't see yourself as a Viking or a Mohawk. You would see yourself as a protector of the synthesis. But how does a culture like this survive into the modern age? Chapter 5. Modern Vinland, the 21st century superpower. Today, Vinland stands as a 21st century superpower. But unlike the empires of our history, Vinland didn't rise through conquest. It rose through stewardship. Look at the architecture of Eriksdal. The city isn't just a place to live. It's a living system of sustainability. The city is organized around communal squares, modern, digital things, where direct democracy happens in real time. Instead of a central government, the city uses a fiber optic network to let every citizen vote on everything from local park maintenance to global trade policy. Vinland's economy is driven by two things. Atlantic trade dominance. They've controlled the northern sea routes for 1,000 years. Advanced renewables. Their energy is rooted in an ancient respect for the elements. Geothermal, wind, and tidal power that makes the rest of the world's fossil fuel addiction look like a relic of the Dark Ages. As a stabilizing, non-European power, Vinland acts as the bridge between the East and the West. It is a civilization that never knew the Dark Ages because it was too busy building the future. And so we've come to our conclusion. We began this journey at a single turning point in 1000 AD. That rusted axe wasn't just a tool. It was the key that unlocked a different world. Because Leif Erikson and a few dozen desperate souls chose to stay, the shield wall held. The steel exchange flourished. And the world gained a superpower that values the land as much as the people. If this reimagined history made you rethink everything you know about the modern world, you're only scratching the surface. There is a whole world of alternate history waiting for you.